Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Man Alone Solo Role Playing YouTube channel. Today, we're going to dive deep into your psyche to figure out how do we get you playing these solo role playing games? How are we going to do it? Right up front, this is not the main reason for the video, but I figured since I got this today, I would do a little bitty section up front just on what I consider the driver's side folded maps of solo role playing. And what I mean by that is like when I was a kid, maybe some of you this resonates with, my dad had, it was obviously before GPS or even MapQuest, just had like these folded state and national maps, and they were so dilapidated, but he would never replace them. And then if we ever got lost, which was rare, man could navigate, they would go spread out on the hood, and they were like his go-to maps that he still has to this day, despite all of the other technology, God bless. And it's just those things that you draw on so frequently. I would consider these to be as a solo player as well as a GM. Now, bad things happen. I can't fully endorse it as a member of this group yet, but I will say so far so good. Looks like a great resource for things that, especially if you're playing anything like Ironsworn, any Powered by the Apocalypse system that has a weak hit, or you have some mechanic where you need to have some penalty or some sort of setback if you fail, and that could be something that over time gets a little bit difficult to constantly be thinking of things that reroute your path and stuff like that. So this is a small book, but I have no doubt that it's very good, because one of the all-time goats of this category is Sandbox Generator, which is available on DriveThruRPG, I believe in PDF or print for very affordably. A simple black and white book that is so filled with almost everything you could ever want. Treasures, monsters, dungeons, layers, abbeys, towers, sewers, keeps, events in all of them, cities, how what the occupations of people are in the cities, what their names are. I think a lot of when I'm playing and I'm scurrying around a book looking for like names and different setting features or set pieces or natural topography, I really am just doing that for sport, because deep down I know that I can just pick up Sandbox Generator here and it will have everything I ever wanted or needed. Another one is definitely Table Fables by Madeline Hale. I do believe there are two other ones of this now, but Table Fables, very similar to Sandbox Generator, really excellent, really simple, laid out in 4 sections. I believe they are people, items, areas, and then like a miscellaneous section. Yep, characters, items, areas, miscellaneous. And again, just like comprehensive, tons and tons. Like, it's one of those things that to do good tables is pretty easy. To do great tables is like a heroic effort of output, repetitive output, and these just really max that out. A bit of an offbeat selection would be Bell Whispers by Tower House Creative, who makes the Fate Mail dice, among others that are featured. Bell Whispers doesn't get as much camera time as the Fate Mail or the Dyadic D20 or the Null dice, which is a shame, because I would see this as one of the best, a little bit, I would suppose, advanced. I hate to say that, because I don't want you to think that you have to be an advanced solo role player to use this, but I would say one of the things you learn and get better at as you become more experienced in solo role playing is that the more specific and unique that an input is, it actually can be the most productive. Like, you'd think that it would be easier to get an input of like, let's see, maybe you say, oh, it'd be better for me to get the input of shoulder pad than it would be to get spiked shoulder pads worn by Legion of Doom while coming out to the ring in 1998 WWF SummerSlam. But it's the latter the specificity of the ladder, it closes off a lot of options, and so it narrows your focus on that input. And Bell Whispers has, first of all, just this awesome story starter list. They're just adventure starters that you roll. What is it? Sorry, my hand is not working as well. Yeah, you roll a d12 and it just gives you these like openings to stories. And I think that this is more than anything the best lead in to what I want to talk about today, which is getting started, turning the ignition key on your solo play. So we'll come back to that. The last book that you just have to have by your, you know what? I'll save a video for this one. I'll do this one separately at some point. But so I was mining my own, right? Forgot exactly what I was looking for, but I unfortunately my internet search led me to honestly one of the most dangerous places on the internet. No, it's not the dark web. It's called Reddit. And, I used to use Reddit. And then about 6 years ago, I stopped using it. And you'd never really understand how poisonous Reddit is to your brain until you stop using it. You just realize that Reddit is like staring into the abyss of the worst circuitry of your brain, that it is the worst kind of groupthink and patting self on back, which is a shame because there are some communities on Reddit that are really great. But in order to get to them, you have to wade through just the filth of, you read one Reddit comment, you should call out of work for a year. That's a year. You read 2 comments, call a lawyer, get a will written. You read 3 comments, you'll never see the light of day again, right? And so whenever I have to go there, because often you'll search for something, like I'll search for a quote or I'll search for a game or whatever, and I'll have these top results from Reddit. Going in there to retrieve that is a type of recon. It's like Catherine Zeta-Jones and Extraction going through the laser guided security system. But every time I do go on there, I see something in solo role playing, and I wish I could help the people there. I wish I could write a comment there, but I can't. I do have a Reddit name, I believe. I think it's Man Alone. Man Alone was not available, so I think it was Man Alone. Wow, yeah, I forgot. Okay, I'm seeing it now. I was trying to get Man Alone. That wasn't available. I kept going through a bunch of different cycles. Finally, I tried to get Man Alone Diabolical, and that wasn't available. So I believe my username on there is Man Alone Diabetic. I don't know if that is still functioning, but just in case I ever have to verify who I am on there, that's who I am. But I see, on any solo role-playing subreddits, I think there's 2. There's like solo RPG play and solo role players. There's always the posts that are like, hey, recommend a game to me, which it's just, they'll figure it out. Like, I know that people who post that kind of stuff will eventually figure it out. You just got to do a little bit of snooping around and scrolling and you'll get what you need. But then there are always a few like this one that I saw that break my heart. Confused on solo play. This was actually in the Merkborg subreddit, not in solo role playing, but I bought Solitary Defilement, given a couple of readovers. I get the general idea. I don't understand how I'm supposed to put this all together to make an epic adventures. Like, how do you make NPCs and run them as realistic people without a GM? How do you flesh out finer details that aren't Oracle or table related? It all seems quite, take a breath, lackluster and not as personalized like running with a GM. Indeed, I feel like I'm just missing something about how to run this interesting spin on Morkborg. What's your guys' take? How do y'all go about playing Solitary Defilement yourselves? and other solo systems like it. Ideally, I'd like to play Gimless co-op with my fiancée someday, but I'm unsure how. 41 people said yes, good. 10 people commented. One of those comments was, I don't know who you are, but my man, look at Shipwright coming in. You should watch both Man Alone and some other channel I don't recognize. For Man Alone, specifically watch how to actually start playing. And of course, how to solo Morkborg using solitary development, which whoever this is, Shipwright, you are your boss baby of the day, your boss baby 2, the sequel, because you directly copy and pasted my titles from there for absolute specificity. And for that, you get the Bud Light Real Men of Genius. That is parody. I don't want to incur any copyright strikes based on an ad campaign from 1997. Okay, so I think obviously I've made this video before, and you could be a Reddit geekhead and say, "Oh, just find it for yourself." And I have been that guy. And if you're a member of a community that has a very common toe dipper question, even though it's not that person's fault, it's still very frustrating. I know that from being a longtime forum denizen of the internet. I was on dig.com forums. I was on IRC. I was using forums. I remember we had Prodigy or America Online when I was 12. Dear Lord, think I'm alive. But and so you'll be part of some communities that naturally have a question that is the natural first question, and people will come on, they will say, I've got to be the first person to ask this, and they'll ask that question, and everyone goes, oh Lord, please look at the sidebar. And that question, for solo role playing is, how do I do it? I don't get it. The other one is, tell me which one's the best one, right? And I really do feel for people who say they don't get it. It's a little bit, of a, I don't want to call it, it's not frustrating. It's not befuddling either. It's not like, I'm like, how do you not get it? It's more like, I can't, I want to break free. I want to break them through that membrane of misunderstanding. There's some sort of mental processes, mental transactions that I am taking for granted when I talk about this, that I am not conveying, or that anybody who is a person in this hobby that attempts to explain this, there's something, if I said, oh, these people just aren't getting it, they need to practice more, I think that would be maybe the case if it was one or two people, but there's so many people that just keep saying, I don't get it. How do I do it? How do I actually do it? And there is an aporia there. There's this feeling that I just want to figure out the way to present it in a way that makes sense, because it's not it's just one of those things that if you get it, you get it, and you take it for granted that it's easy to get, right? But if you don't get it, you don't get it. And so if somebody's like, well, why don't you just get it? What's the problem? You just set the game up, you start playing, you write it down. I mean, I tell you all the instructions. What's the problem? And that's not nice, right? Because this is not just one or two people. There's something about a specific way of learning or seeing the world that some people, they just can't connect with it. And so I guess what I wanted to say is, I've made this video before. I'm going to make this video again, and I'll make this video again and again. And each time I'll try to give a little bit something more about how to make that first step, because my own feelings on it evolves. Okay, they evolve through time. and I have a lot of good input about that. So let me just say first and foremost that I put up a post the other day asking what people were missing in solo games. Like, what is the thing that you want out of a game that you're just not getting? And because, as you know, I'm a real big data guy, no, I thought that the suggestions were so good that I like summarized them into about 11 domains here. And then I started thinking about like what would a game look like if you incorporate all of those suggestions. And I'll make a video at some point, kind of reviewing all of those. But I think a little bit of what I learned through that is that like there's not ever going to be a perfect solo system. Like, because some of the things people want are either mutually exclusive or they're so hard to do both at the same time that you would need a sort of like a genius stroke to do something that does it just right. And even then, you would have to also meet a bunch of other criteria that may or may not be particular to your game. You could do everything right and put it in a sci-fi game, and then the person wants to play a sword and sorcery fantasy, and it just doesn't work. So, really quick, I have a leg cramp. I'm not kidding. Pause this. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. I just, what's how can something hurt this? Okay, hold on. Okay. All right, we're back. What was I talking about? Okay, I'm just so glad it's over, I'm just so glad it's over. Okay. Now, I was about to say that as I'm thinking about these different systems, and I see that question, it is fortuitous. It is very fortuitous because I happened upon last night a system that I knew existed, but I haven't really given it the full its full due. And that is Cepheus Universal System, which is, I guess, like the SRD in a way behind Traveler. And this is such an interesting way of tabletop playing. Now, the layout of this screams that the person who made this, like they are buying like individual bayonets to affix to their Napoleonic armies models right now, because it is extremely it is written like an instruction manual to a Tandy 1000X computer from 1988. I like that, but what I'm saying with that is I'm not trying to rip on it. Those are like some of my favorite dudes in the world, like grognards. But what I am saying is that for some people, they'll look at this and they'll say, "Oh, this doesn't look like, I look at all the images in Symbaroum, and this image that's not as good as Symbaroum. I want something more interesting." And the layout, you have to put that aside for a second if you want to expand your ability to learn and run new systems, because I won't say that this is like something I want to run immediately, but it's got so many new. It's got not necessarily new. The way that it explains things and the way that it takes a technical, structured approach towards unpacking things in tabletop gaming is, I think, very, very illuminating in terms of understanding a lot of these things that we take for granted. And quite frankly, that when we're explaining to a new player, we are assuming that there are like 25 premises that we take for granted. We assume that they know those premises, but they don't. It reminds me of very early in my career. There was like a workplace that had a pen and paper documents, and I worked for some, I don't know, it was one of these like temp gig jobs, but my job was to go in and teach these people how to like start using the computer system after they had been using pen and paper for like 30 years. And on the first day, I said, look, I know a lot of you are nervous about this. We're going to take it really slow, step by step. Don't even worry about it. And the first thing I want you to do is just go ahead on the desktop, go ahead and double click on the icon in the lower right that says, you know, document center. And this woman in the front row is like, double click what? And she's like, on my desk. And somebody else was like, I don't have anything on my desk. Like, they didn't know what double clicking was. They didn't know what an icon was. They thought that that was someone you shouldn't worship. You know, they didn't know any of that. And so I had assumed all those other premises. And this happens very often. Even, and I'm guilty of it too, I'm sure, but like even videos that are very remedial, they just glide by things so fast that people who are new to it, sometimes they just go, well, that is inaccessible to me. I don't understand it. And especially if you have a certain type of learning or mindset and you are maybe more quantitative thinker or logistical thinker, and you're talking to somebody who's a bit more right-brained, it's very, very difficult to think through sequencing of things and quantity of things. And so I think the more ways that we can do this, the better. And what I like about this, even though I did say it reads like a technical manual, is that what I really appreciated is that a lot of the things that we do in a game, and even the affectations, the approaches, the mindset, are explained here by Paul Elliott. Even just this paragraph, it's Paul Elliott, right? Did I say that right? I want to give credit where credit's due. Even this paragraph on D6s, jeez, what am I doing? This is in the introduction here. I thought I was just clicking on the cover. Yeah, so there's a whole section on what is role-playing. Zoser games, yeah, Paul Elliott. Even this system on just like rolling a D6 and what a skill roll is and talking about the percentages and why we do it and stuff like that. Everything here is exhaustively spelled out. And that is really, this is a really, really good thing if you just don't understand any of this stuff. Like you don't even understand what it means to modify something or why we even would modify something. And so I am just learning a whole lot just because of the way that everything is presented here. The system itself is interesting. It's sort of a system agnostic or setting agnostic universal role-playing system. It's very 2D6, but it has really good sections. The running the game section is talking about task, using opposed roles. Yeah, right here, D6. It just really exhaustively does this. And then it also provides tons and tons of examples, right? That was one of the things that people said in that comment post, is that they wanted examples, that there's not enough flowcharts, explanations, and then revisiting things to show how it actually work. Something that frustrates me a lot, let me say this, is and for some reason, it's like a cabal of the major game companies get together and say, whenever we give an example of play, we're going to include 3 elements in it that are not explained, and expect the player to be able to like extract out of that these other things are irregularities, and just to focus on this. I swear I wish I could remember what it was, because it was in some player's guide where someone's like, in this example, you say to use this dice and then you use this one, and this one. And they say, well, yeah, we just wanted to show that like other weird stuff could happen. And you're like, it's like, now's not the time. You've just told them a basic tenet of how to play this game. You do not need to add in a bunch of wild cards. That's so confusing. And I will tell you that most people, they never get past that. They just say, forget it, I quit, right? So what was really, really illuminating, though, is that The Cepheus engine also has a solo module. And I got this yesterday from Drive-Thru. And again, the design is the design. Paul Elliott is this look. You know what I mean? Like this looks like an instruction manual to a Black and Decker like mixing automatic mixing bowl thing. But it's great. Just give it a chance, right? Because again, this is an all time, right? This is like the best. You know when you're about to get like a very bog standard speech at a work thing when it's like dictionary.com defines role playing as he starts there. So that's good though. That's where you want to start. We don't need this over stylized stuff. Let's just stick to the basics here, okay? Give some reasons why people play solo. I really like this. Old dogs. When the game's old and no one wants to play, you may still want to enjoy it. I love it. You're grown up. His kids are 18 and 21 now. They've left home. But that doesn't mean the game has to stop. Talks about the solo approach. There additionally is a game using this, combining this hostile solo, which I also did pick up. I think it's on sale right now for $5 on Drive-Thru RPG. And this also has excellent instructions specifically for the game solo. And it breaks down how to do different things in task resolution, scene resolution, yes, no, hazards, combat, or just decide. Let me tell you what else I love about this. If I was writing this, I would make a big mistake. And I want to stop making this mistake. In fact, like as I was reading this, I was humbled because to say task resolution, scene resolution, and just decide, that's not that. If somebody reads that, that means I don't know prettier words. That's not the point of an instruction booklet. I'm not supposed to say things in a beautiful way. I'm supposed to transfer the understanding of a mechanic that I have in my head to somebody who does not yet have it. And so I even think about this with like moves and Powered by the Apocalypse. They'll say, oh, well, just like, moves are so, it couldn't be simpler. Whenever you want to do anything, just make a move. And I'm like, okay, well, what are the moves? Oh, it's real easy. Let me show you. All right, you want to make some moves, my friend? I got some moves for you. You ready? So there's just a couple different types of moves, okay? And so let's just go over the categories first, all right? So we have session moves. That's pretty easy, right? Adventure moves. Session, adventure, no problem. Quest moves. How's that different from an adventure? Don't worry about it. Connection moves, okay? You taking notes? Exploration moves. That's not quest or adventure. Nope. And sometimes combat. Oh, that sounds familiar. I know that. And then there's suffer moves. All right, that's separate from combat. All right, got it. Hold on. Recover moves. Wait, okay, so after I suffer, I recover. Threshold moves. Legacy moves, fate moves, night moves, and then you want to look at the whole list of them. Okay, so no judgies. Okay, obviously, if you've ever heard what I've said about Starforged and Ironsworn, you know that I think that this is a masterful system that in many ways is the standard by which all other solo gaming is measured. However, come on, dude. Like you cannot, you can't look at this and say, couldn't be simpler. Just pick a move. It's too much. It's too much. And this is, I think for a lot of people, leads to decision paralysis, a certain type of decision paralysis, which there's an opposite side of that when there's a decision paralysis of sparseness, which I fear is what happens with Merc Borg, which is like, okay, especially in a system like Merc Borg, that's like, okay, to start the game, you get a broken dagger, a medallion with your parents' divorce date on it, and an eye patch that that belonged to your grandson who's not born yet, and you're like, and it's like, go into the land, scum, and you're like, okay, right? And so there, I think that as on the nose and as like Black and Decker vacuum cleaner, hand vacuum cleaner instruction manual that we can get, the better. Task resolution, got it. Scene resolution, makes sense. Yes or no questions, hazards, combats, just decide. Elegant? No. Understandable? Absolutely. Here are the different kinds of campaigns. Here's the initial mission that you're going to set up. And so now this is a specific game, but then there's also the Solo, which is the accompaniment for the Cepheus engine, the Solo supplement. And this, I'd say, if you were only going to buy one of the things I've just mentioned here, this would be it, okay? Because this is, to me, and I've just, all last night I've been reading this and just blown away with the level of clarity that things are explained, okay? So it talks about character creation, it talks about your career, your skills, it's all very good, campaign sheet. But let me take you to the part that I think is the real money. All right, so in this system, it talks about the heart of the Solo is the plan. It's a scene resolution mechanic. It is not a task resolution mechanic, all right? And so the plan is how you're going to achieve something. And again, just, to honor the creator of this system, I'm not going to show you all of this, but there is a fundamental difference in the conceptualization of role-playing through this. Rather than asking the question of what happens next, which is what most solo games ask you. They say, okay, I have a treasure. I'm at this side of the bridge, and on the other side of the bridge is a treasure, and I want to get there, but the bridge is old and rickety, and underneath the bridge is lots of fiery lava. Okay, I want to cross the bridge, so I will make a move, and in this case, fairly obvious, I'm going to use the move of move. And so I pick some attribute depending on the game, and I roll. Did I make it? No. Scorch, right? Now, there's a whole other thing we can talk about with that, which is being careful how you frame your questions, making sure that you try not to put everything on the line when it comes to yes or no questions. Ask more about details. That's not what this video is about. This video is about how the hell do I even take the first step? How do I not have solo agoraphobia? Okay. And the primary innovation of the Cepheus engine is that it relocates the fortune mechanics to the middle. All right. And I have to readjust my arm brace. All right. So you develop a plan. Okay. And your plan could be something as simple as crossing this bridge, but in all likelihood, the plan is a bit more elaborate. All right. So this plan says, I'm on the outside of this big cave here, and inside this cave, there's a treasure, but it's being protected by a dragon. And so what I want to do is I want to climb up to the mountain, because most people try to go in front and you have to directly confront the dragon. But I've heard an old rumor that there's a secret way in that you can go and you can travel all around through the back, and then I can steal the treasure behind the dragon's butt, and then I can pull it out all the way to safety without getting hurt. That's the plan. You are going to determine as honestly as possible how, I guess, risky is that plan, how let's see, the difficulty, right? Like how likely is it to succeed? And based on that, you then make a roll, and the result of your roll, it's not yes or no necessarily. There's degrees of it. It could be that you succeeded with flying colors, could be that you failed miserably, but also more likely to be like, if you succeeded but it wasn't easy, you succeeded but you didn't get everything you wanted, etc. So then you make that roll and the scene has its result. And then you know how it's going to end. So suppose that you say that I rolled all this up. I said that the difficulty was shaky. I need a 10 plus to get it. I have a great roll. I succeeded. Okay, now I play out my scene. And now we use these mechanics not to figure out what is going to happen, but to figure out what has happened. That's where the fortune comes in. And that's where we use these mechanics to establish what happened from out of this cave to up this cave to in and through to getting that treasure and to coming out. And it's that story unfurled in reverse that is going to reveal, okay, the delight. And this is called by Zoser, by this system, the fortune in the middle. And the supposition is that in most games, and especially those in group games with a GM, fortune is placed at the end. You go through the mechanics, and then at the end of that, you find out your fortune, whether you succeeded, whether you failed, etc. And so dice rolls have a very high level of stakes, and everything you do is either bringing you closer or further away from achieving what you want. In this system, the scene is already written. What we're doing is retroactively filling in those blanks. Okay, now you might be thinking, I'm not interested in that. Or you might be thinking, that sounds awesome. My purpose in explaining this system to you is not to evangelize it. I'm not trying to tell you that I found this new system that is the answer to all of your wildest dreams about solo play. Instead, I'm bringing this up because I think it presents a good way to understand what type of solo role-playing experience do you want? What do you want to get out of it? Because I suspect, and am not certain, but suspect, that a big reason why some people take to solo role-playing like bees on chicken, and other people take to it like bees on turkey, bees do not like turkey, is because they have misaligned expectations. They are uncertain where their fortune is, and they are uncertain what level of independent activity they should be doing in a room by themselves. Okay, for those who are not francophones, that are not native French speakers but have learned French, I had to take a class on it. I am I'm not a competent French speaker, but I took a class on it because I did some work in a place in West Africa at one time that had that, and I needed to be able to like order food and stuff like that. And so I took a French class, and what I noticed that is hard about it is that in order to speak French effectively, you cannot use your English-speaking mouth, nor can you use your English-speaking mannerisms. To speak French, you actually have to like deliver your words and move your head in a way that is fundamentally different from English. Like if you want to say right? And one of the reasons I would have like trouble saying like I would have trouble saying these things is because I refuse to commit to the full affectation of French speaking. I wanted to do it as an English speaker. So I'd be like, très fatigué. Je suis malade. And you cannot do it. You have to fully give yourself over to that. And it's the same thing with solo play, is that if you feel silly sitting in a room going, die, monster, You don't deserve to live. Ugh, you'll never get my treasure. Right? If you find that that's ridiculous and you think that the only way to access the fun here is for you to do that, you're not going to have a good time. And for some people, there is some growth available there. There's an opportunity for growth there. I would say if this is something you actually want to do, if you secretly wish to do that, but you feel embarrassed, then this is something that you can work through and you can overcome. But for some people, it has nothing to do with self-improvement or growth or anything. It's simply they don't want to do that. They're not interested. So then what happens is they say, so then the only other option is journaling. And then they pop open their pen and they write their first scene. And after 6.5 hours and 7,000 words, they're calling their ortho doctor to get put in traction because their hand is completely broken. And they're like, wow, that wasn't fun. I haven't had fun like that since I had timed state-sanctioned exams in grade school where I had to fill out a whole blue book by the time that the alarm went off, right? And so given those two extremes, I have to write school essays if you don't want to do that. Again, some people do. And then the other extreme is I have to go to art class, right? So it's like I have to go to English class or I have to go to art class, or there's possibly a third one, which is I have to go to math class. SoloRPGs are an avalanche of dice rolls and derived stats, and I need to get an abacus, and I need to ask CERN if I can, power up the Higgs boson or whatever to figure out my armor class. If you are trying to play any of those and you don't want to, you're not going to have a good time. And so I think that if you're a person that has the question of like, what am I supposed to do? Like, okay, so I created a character. Okay, I'm in a tavern. Well, what do I do now? All right. What I'm saying is you need to figure out which Star Wars you like. Please hold. Please do not go away. I have a point with this. All right. You have to put aside for a second your biases against Star Wars. All right. I know. All right. Look what they did to our boy. It's not the Star Wars we grew up with or whatever, but just put the content of the movies aside and look at what they represent, because this is the way that I have come up with understanding what sort of experience you want to have. There are 3 types, in my mind, there are 3 types of solo role-playing experiences. There's the original trilogy, there's the prequels, and there's the sequels. Okay? Now, again, this has nothing to do with like how good they were as movies, what the plot was like, the boneheaded moves George Lucas made. Can't believe J.J. Abrams let Rian Johnson do that. Empire Strikes Back was clearly better. Return of the Jedi was none of that. Okay? All we're talking about right now is the function of time in those movies and where the enjoyment comes from. Okay? Please, if you're not getting it yet, please allow for me to make an example here, okay? So in the original movies, and I guess I should say this is for people, like if you're 19 and you saw like the prequels before or whatever, like then you watched the original trilogy, it's going to be a little bit different. So I guess in that way, I'm talking to people of my general cohort who like grew up with the original trilogy around their adolescence or young adulthood. They got the prequels, and then in their mid-adulthood, they got the sequels, okay? The original trilogy, if you're watching that in 1978 or 82 or whatever, you have no idea what this is. There's no such thing as Star Wars in your head. Star Wars has come out. You're enjoying it. The first movie was really cool. It was really groundbreaking, you know? You'd never seen sci-fi like that. It was almost like a love story, and it was serious. And the The big thing, though, was you had no idea what happened. And in each movie, a little bit more of the story was unfurled. Okay? That is a type of solo role playing. That type of solo role playing is emergent storylines in which you use dice rolls to figure out what happens next. You have no idea what happens next, okay? You have no idea if Luke will live, or embarrassingly enough, if you've only seen the first movie and not the other ones, you're like, hey, will Luke and Leia finally tie the knot, right? You have no idea. And so you are approaching each event in your game with a fresh set of eyes, because the enjoyment for you is the surprise of what happens next. Okay? For most people, that is the base level of enjoyment that they like to have. And the reason for that is because novelty is one of the most enjoyable human experiences. To see or experience a new thing is pretty reliably a good experience, even if it kind of sucks, right? Like if I told you that, if it was 2014 and you were going to a Kings of Leon concert and you'd never seen them before, you would be pretty excited. Whereas if you went to a Kings of Leon concert now in 2024, people would be like, wow, you went to a Kings of Leon. I didn't know that they were still doing it. Did they ever have any more albums, right? So it was the novelty of it. It's the novelty of encountering something new and different, and especially that society culture has not concretized their opinion on. That's not necessarily relevant to solo play. It's not like culture has an opinion on your solo play. But what I'm saying is your solo play that you like is a gradually unraveling plot in which you will use dice rolls to determine the next course of action. For the individual who is looking to play Merc Borg, that is likely what is needed there. And I think what is missing and what there should be more of is, such as in Bell Whispers, more fleshed out opening scenes, because I think that it is very overwhelming to go through all of the setup and then say go. And I think it would work a lot better if there was some solo intros. Look at this. You crunch over snow-muted leaves. Your breath builds frost burrs on your scarf. Your bag is full of the mushrooms you came to collect. Your stomach tightens and heat builds at the base of your skull. Normally, being wrapped in the silence of winter makes this type of foraging calming. Now you feel anything but calm. You know these woods. You always keep the painted face of the old stone pillars to your right. After rounding the last one, nothing looks familiar. By now, you should be on the main road. As you stop again to get your bearings, you notice the sun is setting. There are no stone pillars in sight. Focusing, you notice the trees look different. Something is wrong, somehow wrong. You try to calm your panic. The silence is broken by muffled footfalls off to your left. Do you investigate? All right. So that's all you need to start a whole, in my opinion, a whole 6-month-long campaign. But unfortunately, most solo games rely on oracles, as they should, but it's very hard to make the first abstraction. In the same way that it's hard to write the first line of your great American novel that you're writing. Like, how do you start it? I mean, so much. Think about The Dark Tower. The man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. Wow. And the line of your book is, Norm had been unhappy lately. And you're like, my book sucks, right? There's so much pressure. And I think it would really be helpful for us to start including some hooks, some adventure hooks right at the beginning of solo play. I think the fear when people develop solo tools is they say, well, I don't want to take too much agency away from the player. I want to allow them to build this out themselves. And so you make a Merc Borg character, and then you use the Oracle, and the Oracle comes up as tree and screwdriver. And you're like, okay, I have a screwdriver. I'm near a tree. And then within 10 minutes, you're just in Google Sheets doing your budget because you're like, I just want to put that behind me, right? And where if it's like you wake up, blood streaming out of the corner of your mouth, your vision, bleary, begins to clear with a tinge of red still on the corners of your vision. Ahead of you, you see a body, at least a body. Who knows if there's a head on it? You lurch forward to find out more, but see that something is holding you back. You tense momentarily, thinking that somebody is grabbing you, but in fact, it's not a hand. It's a screwdriver which has been stabbed through the fabric of your shirt and into the trunk of the tree, holding you in place. Who put you there? And why do you think it was the man who was laying right in front of you, or the thing that was once a man? What do you do next? Well, you can start making some choices now, right? Pull the damn screwdriver out. Investigate that guy. Put the screwdriver in your pocket. You have a weapon now, right? Where are you? Get your bearings. Anything nearby? There's an inn. You're going to need to sleep. Some new clothes. You got blood on your face? What's my HP? But if it's just, okay, start playing Merkborg. Okay, input 1, 3, fish. Input 2, 7, licorice. Let's see. 10 minutes later, you're going to be programming your drone you got last Christmas that you never set up. All right, so that is the original series. Now, for some people, that emergent style of storytelling is not their jam. All right, and instead, they would prefer to have more structure. They would prefer to have railings. Yes, they want random things to happen, but they want to know which lane they're bowling in. And for a person who is interested in that, and this might, whereas the original series might be somebody who is more interested in sort of theater class, this might be more math class, all right? This is the sequels, right? You know pretty much what's happening, right? I mean, the sequels really didn't innovate in a lot of ways. I don't even have to get into it. But at least in the first movie, it was kind of nice, just kind of seeing it again. Yes, as Tyrion Lannister would say, it all turned to ashes in your mouth when you realized, oh God, they're bringing Palpatine back. But like, this is, and again, it has nothing to do with the quality of these movies. It's just an analog describer structure-wise, right? So this is a type of play in which you want to be surprised. You want to find out what's next, but you kind of know the general gist of what's happening here, right? Oh, it's not a Death Star. Now it's called a Death Star is Born or whatever. Whatever it is, you have that schematic and you follow along and make choices along a narrow path. Now, right off the top of my head, and in fact, let's do one better. I'm going to do right off the top of my bookcase. A great example of that, 12 Years by Max Moon. 12 Years, also some that are like this might be 4 Against Darkness. Okay. 12 Years, 4 Against Darkness. These are games where you're going to roll up your party members. You have like procedural dungeon creation. You roll, you refer back to things. You have choices to make about what items to take, which ones to leave behind, which attacks to use, which loot to pick up, which enemies to fight, which ones to run away from, whether to go left in the dungeon or right, whether to go try for a bigger treasure or leave it behind because you're running out of time, right? And what's cool about these, and what even though I kind of early in my channel I had a bit of an aversion to them, where I've found some degree of appreciation for them is in the fact that these are really modular. These are solo experiences that you build on little by little with each supplement that comes out. It builds the world out even more. So for instance, for 12 Years, there was the Demon Lord expansion, and this added a new character, added a lot of new NPCs, a new area to explore. And what's great about this is a lot of what you're doing now, when I said math class, like you don't actually have to like do math here. And in fact, there are games that are far more math heavy that you could play. I don't mean it math in terms of like calculation. I meant it more in like the place that you draw delight is in having surprise, but knowing that there is a formula or an algorithm that you sort of follow in this. Okay. Also, Max just sent me 12 Years Village expansion. You know what? We absolutely got to play this. I'm putting this next week. It's been too far since Max sent this. Certified Man Alone, coolest dude, Max Moon. Please check out Max Moon Games. You get one of these awesome things. We'll do this in a video. But yeah, this adds mechanics for being in a village and a little bit more exploration like that. Four Against Darkness, One Shot Dungeon, I've heard, is kind of the same thing by Castle Rock Games. There are other games that widen this out a little bit. For instance, Broken Cask is a good example of a game that, yes, it does have generative elements. You could role play conversations and come up with different names for things and different recipes and resolving different social dynamics. But at the end of the day, you know that if you're playing Broken Cask, you're not going to have anything where Sephiroth comes in and slices your tavern down with the Masamune blade or anything like that, because there's an algorithm to it. There's a formula to it. Okay, so that would be Fortune at the end. This would be Fortune at the end. I would say that this one would be Fortune at the end that you know about at the beginning. It's kind of like having a surprise party thrown for you, but you knew it was happening already, right? And so there's still a delight there, and you're seeing all your friends and you're enjoying your time, but it's not like you weren't like, oh my gosh, right? Now, the third type is the prequel, okay? Now, in the prequel, think about the way that you enjoy a prequel. And also think about some of the limitations of prequels. I remember as a kid, I hated prequels because I was like, what is the point of this? I already know what's going to happen. I was the loser doofus who was like, whoa, why would I see Titanic? And then it turned out to be a beautiful movie about, Billy Zane was in that. My God. Well, anyways, James Cameron, I'll stand James Cameron till the day I die, but neither here nor there. So if this is a type of thing that you enjoy, you knew that little rat kid was going to become Vader. You knew that Jar Jar Binks was never going to be in a Star Wars thing again. Actually, there's a video about the guy who played that. People were so mean to him, and he is a lovely human being. And if you find that video, you should watch it. He didn't write the character, people. But anyways, obviously an awful character. The enjoyment comes not necessarily from like figuring out what's going to happen. You ultimately know what's going to happen. You want to see how to get from where you are now to where you end up, because there is textured stories that unfurl in that time, in that process. And this would be what I would consider the Cepheus engine system, the solo system, which is saying, I already know that that Hayden Christensen is going to go to the dark side. I already know that Padme is going to be gone because she never shows up again. I already know that Luke and Leia are going to be jettisoned off somewhere. But how did it go down? And how does Darth Maul... How did he cut his weight in half? What diet was he following? And you want to find these things out because there is beauty in that. There's texture in that, right? And so now I think there's ways to figure out what type of person you are. Do you like reading books? Historical fiction books? Do you like watching documentaries about stuff you already know? Do you like rewatching shows you've already watched? Do you watch clips of shows you've already watched over and over? Not including The Wire or Sopranos, because obviously all of us just watch Wire and Soprano clips all day. I guess The Office too. I've never I've only seen season 1. I assume it's good, but it's over. I'm never going to watch it. All right. The time has passed. Okay. And so, if you're a person who enjoys things just for the presence, the enjoyment of it, if you're a person who, when you watch horror movies, you constantly ask your partner if the person's going to die, then maybe you're a person that doesn't derive as much joy out of the tension of not knowing. You derive joy off of learning about those relationships and where they came about, and et cetera, et cetera. And so if this is the case, if you fall into this category, you might consider a system in which everything that you role play is laid out in advance, and you're already determining whether you've succeeded or failed. That's already happened. And what I like about this solo engine with the Cepheus system is it gives you tools to then flesh out that, event. Like, how did it go that when I tried to get the treasure from the dragon that I got thwarted? Like, what happened, and how is it that when I left, I have some injury, and what was that injury? And did I get any of the treasure, and how was that? Because I only had a partial success. For some people, that's a huge turnoff. They go, so what's the point in that? I already know what is going to happen. Within this one, though, I will say that there is another option because admittedly, this I guess is a bit of a gap in this video. I can't do it all in one video, but it's not like this information doesn't exist. But as far as what other games are there that present this type of encapsulated, predetermined system of resolution, if you have an idea of what any of those are, please put in the comments. But one that I'm thinking, this might be a category of somebody who enjoys journaling games. Okay. I'm not a huge fan of journaling games. In some ways, I think they're fundamentally different from other solo RPGs, so different that I sometimes think they are sort of a species of their own. But if you look at something like 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, you've turned that page, you've rolled those dice, this stuff has already happened. You've already lost those memories. You've already met that person. Now we need to find out, what was it that went down? All right. So, obviously, your mileage may vary. If you came to this video saying, how do I take my first step? All right. And from my ramblings, you cannot, sort of, I don't know what I want to say here. You can't surmise like a takeaway lesson from my meandering mutterings. I understand if that's the case. So I guess I'll try to be as concrete as possible if you're feeling that way. If you are having trouble starting, what I would like you to do is I would like you to find the beginning of any story and just stop after the second paragraph, or at any point on the first or second page where you don't know what's going to happen next, and then just start your play from that position. Okay. Why do I always want to call it? Bell Whispers has a great example of this. You can also look up adventure hooks. You can go into any like D&D adventure campaign and just look at the beginning. Look at it, the part where it says the GM, read this to your players. Read that so that you can assign yourself a time and a place and a circumstance and a condition. Because I think that the problem with starting is if too much blue sky smiles at you. If you got too much blue sky ahead of you, it's a daunting task to fill in that sky with clouds and airplanes and sunshine and treetops and everything. So just have someone fill that out a little bit for you. If you're a person like me that feels like that's cheating, I'm not doing it the way it was intended, chill. First of all, that's totally valid. That's an input. That's a totally valid way of using an input. Number two, okay, if you want to get it to the point where you can just like rev up that engine and get going with just 2 prompts off of a table, well, you got to work to get there. Okay. And so first, we're going to start you on a remediation program of using these adventure hooks. And then once you do enough of these, you're going to start to develop the ability, the framework in your head to start producing these sort of things yourself. But you need to root your character somewhere. You need to place yourself somewhere real so that you can at least make a first choice. Set yourself up to at least make a first choice. And then take some time to determine where your enjoyment in play comes from. If your enjoyment is only going to come through surprise, here's what happens next, then this is the type of game you need to play. If your enjoyment is going to come from like, it's the end of the day, and crack open a cold cream soda, and I'm going to have some fun surprises, some dice rolls, and just see how good I can do this time, this could be your answer here. If you're somebody that is more interested in crafting the tale of how things came to be and filling in the distance between there and here, this could be your answer for that. But do yourself a favor. If you're having trouble starting, just steal an opening hook from something. You can even do the thing where like the names and dates and places have been changed to protect the innocent. Go ahead and read the damn newspaper. Hell, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to give you an adventure hook right now. Okay, here you go. Here's your adventure hook. You just woke up. Next to you is a plate with your favorite breakfast, and it's still hot. And across from you is a person half shrouded in shadow. And they say, go ahead, take a bite. What do you do? Huh? You got to figure it out. And you know what? Let me show you how clairvoyant I am. That thing on your plate, your favorite breakfast, it's a Hot Pocket, isn't it? I knew it. Everybody loves a Hot Pocket. You know how to tell someone you don't love them? Give them a lean pocket. My God. Why do it? Why do a lean pocket? It doesn't make any sense. Oh, shoot.